It's time for the podcast. Yeah, the podcast is starting.
What's a podcast?
It's all gonna be alright in the end. It's gonna be alright. And if you've got some worries, my dear little friends, please rest your busy minds, because it's finally time for stories from now and then.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Stories from Now and Then. It's your very own Captain Blunderface, and I'm joined by my wonderful little pal here, Deprecatus. We're sitting here in the old library over in the craft room, and there are lots of supplies in here. We've got fabrics, we've got popsicle sticks, we've got wooden bricks, we have glue, we have tape, we have... Oh, Deprecatus, did you get some glue in your fur? Yeah, you're really onto something there, or rather, something's on you. Okay, I'll get a cloth and some warm water for you. Sorry about that, everybody. We're making some puppets for a show, and I think when we glued on the googly eyes, Deprecatus got a bit attached to his project. Before we open the door to today's true story, we have a shout out for Aiden in Victoria, British Columbia. Aiden loves Greek mythology, and his favorite Greek god is Zeus. Aiden, this story is for you. And stay tuned for some Greek mythology coming up soon. Oh, and it looks like we just got a message from our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by GuestGetter. They help restaurants bring in guests and keep them coming back, which is great because I personally forget where I'd like to eat unless someone reminds me. GuestGetter helps restaurants do that, but on purpose. Check them out, guestgetter.co. And with that, I'm thrilled to pass it off to the amazing story spinner, Nicola. Please take it away.
Okay, today we've got a true story about a real person who really lived. And people still remember this person for all the good things he did and how kind he was. Let's get straight into it. This story is called The Kindest Neighbour on Television, or The Story of Mr. Rogers. Once upon a time, on March 20th, in the small town of Latrobe, Pennsylvania, a baby boy was born. His name was Fred. Little Fred was a gentle, sensitive child. He didn't like to run and wrestle and play rough games. Fred preferred quieter things, playing the piano, reading books, spending time with his puppets and stuffed animals. Now, when he was young, Fred was often sick and he would spend long days in bed, so he learned to entertain himself inside, making up stories, creating puppet shows, playing music on the piano that was in his family's living room. Other children sometimes teased Fred. They made fun of him for being shy, for not liking sports, for preferring books to baseball. The bullying hurt Fred's feelings deeply. He would go home and cry, feeling lonely and left out. But Fred had special people in his life. People who loved him exactly as he was. His grandfather would sit with young Fred and say, "You're special. You're special just the way you are." Fred's mother was kind and patient, too. When Fred felt sad or scared, she never told him to toughen up or stop being so sensitive. She listened. She understood. She made him feel safe. As Fred grew older, he discovered music. And he loved it. He would sit at the piano for hours, his fingers dancing across the keys, creating melodies that matched his feelings. Music became Fred's way of expressing all the big feelings inside him. The feelings he sometimes had trouble putting into words. When Fred was still a young man, something happened that changed his life forever. He saw television for the first time. Now, this was many years ago, and television, or TV, was still quite new. Not many people had TV sets yet. Fred was studying music at college and came home to visit his parents. There, in his parents' home, he watched a TV show where he saw people throwing pies in each other's faces. Now, some people found that funny, but Fred found it to be not very kind and not very respectful. Fred decided he would work in television and use it to help people. So he graduated college and worked on some TV shows in New York City for a while. But then he went back to Pittsburgh to work at a TV station called WQED. He was a program manager and did music and puppets for a show called The Children's Corner. At the same time, he was studying at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, and a few years later he was appointed as a minister, but with a special role, to help children and families through television. He didn't want to be an on-camera star, but he learned how cameras worked. He learned how shows were produced. He also was a big fan of using puppets to tell stories and explore feelings. He made puppets called Daniel Striped Tiger, King Friday the 8th, Lady Aberlin, X the Owl, Henrietta Pussycat, and many others. From 1963 to 1967, Fred lived in Canada, where he worked on a black and white version of a show called Mr. Rogers, spelled as one word. It was the first time he appeared on camera instead of being behind the scenes. The CBC's children's programming head at the time, Fred Rainsbury, specifically asked him to be on camera, saying, "Fred, I've seen you talk with kids. Let's put you yourself on the air." Fred learned a lot during that time, and even though his job was going well in Canada, in 1968, Fred moved back to Pittsburgh with his family and started his own television program called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Every episode began the same way. Mr. Rogers would walk through the door singing, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?" Then he would sit down, take off his jacket and put on a cardigan sweater. He'd change from his dress shoes into comfortable shoes. And then he would talk, really talk, to the children watching. He learned how to speak on TV in a very personal way. He would look directly into the camera lens and simply talk to it as if he were talking through it to the other side, where families were watching at home. Mr. Rogers talked slowly, much slower than other television hosts. Some people thought he should speed up, that children would maybe get bored. But Mr. Rogers knew something important. People need time to think. They need time to process what they're hearing. Speaking slowly showed that he respected his viewers and allowed them to just take their time to listen. Mr. Rogers talked about many feelings. He talked about being angry, being sad, being scared, being jealous. He said it was okay to have these feelings. Everyone has them. And he showed children healthy ways to handle them. Mr. Rogers talked about difficult topics too, things other children's shows avoided. He talked about divorce, about death, about going to the doctor, about starting school. He knew some of these things worried children, and he wanted to help them understand and feel less afraid. Mr. Rogers always ended each show the same way, looking directly at the camera and saying, "You've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are." Mr. Rogers wasn't just a good neighbour on TV, though. He also was a good neighbour when the cameras weren't on. He received many letters and answered every single letter that children sent him, and every morning he would write or say prayers for anyone that asked. Sometimes he got thousands of letters, but he insisted on responding to each child personally. He knew that for a child to take the time to write a letter was important, and each child deserved a response. In 1969, when the government wanted to stop giving money to public television, Mr. Rogers went to speak to a bunch of politicians. They were cranky and skeptical. One senator said he'd already decided to cut the funding. But then Mr. Rogers spoke. He explained why children needed programs that treated them with respect, that helped them understand their emotions, that taught them they were valuable. He spoke honestly and gently, from the heart. When he finished, a cranky senator had tears in his eyes. "I think you've earned your $20 million, he said. Public television was saved. Mr. Rogers made 895 episodes of his show over 33 years. In 2001, when Mr. Rogers was 73 years old, he retired from TV. On February 27th, 2003, Mr. Rogers passed away at 74 years old, and the world was sad and remembered his life with lots of warmth. Adults who grew up watching his show remembered how Mr. Rogers had been a steady, kind presence in their childhoods, teaching them it was okay to have feelings, okay to be themselves, okay to be gentle in a loud world. And today, children still watch Mr. Rogers' Neighbourhood, and all of his episodes are free for anyone to watch online. The show's messages are timeless. You are special. Your feelings are important. Be kind. Be yourself. And sometimes, when the world feels loud and fast and scary, it helps people to remember Mr. Rogers' calm voice saying, "You are special. I like you just the way you are." What a special man he was. I love to think of how many people he helped over all those years of his work in television. He reminded so many people that they are special. And this is the wonderful thing. You can do this too. You can remind other people of how special they are, and you can let other people remind you of how special you are. Take a moment to think of someone in your life who has helped you feel special. It could be a parent, a teacher, a friend, a grandparent. It's a really lovely way of bringing goodness to the world.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for taking us through a journey of Mr. Rogers' life. Deprecatus and I are going to look up some old reruns of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood online after we finish these puppets. Thanks for listening, everybody. Make sure to tune in next week. And if you'd like a shout out, feel free to send us a message on Instagram at Stories From Now and Then. We'd love to hear from you. Stories From Now and Then is narrated by the amazing Nicola Ward. Music by Captain Blunderface. Deprecatus is actually inspired by a real cat, a rag doll named Moonshadow, who likes to interrupt people while they're working. We'll see you next time on
stories from now and then.